It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today's date is the 28th of February, last day of February, and it's not a leap year, right, John?
That's correct. Yeah, we don't get an additional day, Brad. You got to get your mortgage check in tomorrow.
Or something like that. That is John Combest, Combest, and I am Brad. We put this show together. Now, if you're listening to this into the future, and once again, we do the show live 7 to 8 o'clock, Monday through Friday on 104.5 KSOQ. It is a live radio show, not just a podcast, but it turns into a podcast and a video cast, whatever you call it, video blog. I don't know. What do you call podcasts that are on YouTube? Is that still a podcast?
Yeah, I think so. But as you know, we don't, as you do a masterful job pointing out, we're not podcasters. We're radio guys, and it gets put in a podcast. You do a great job of describing that, Brad.
Thank you, John. That's the first compliment you've given me in the last 2 months. But anyway.
Incorrect. You brush off all compliments, and the only way to motivate you is by insulting you, belittling you, and talking down to you. That's why I do it. Go ahead, Brad.
You know what? If you're not nice, Jason Law is going to come make a visit to your house. He's going to knock on your door, and then the SWAT guys are going to hit the battering ram through your door, and you're going, I didn't do anything. Oh, you talked about me.
My version of the embassy is St. Charles Convention Center, because he's not allowed in there at that ball. So I race to the St. Charles Convention Center, and that's my embassy.
Okay, here we go. Okay, in the A block, you had this heart-rendering, is it rending or rendering? Or is it rending?
No, it's not heart-rendering, which is morons and knuckle-draggers say that. It's heart-wrenching.
Heart-wrenching. Okay, heart-wrenching story about a person that they interviewed. We don't know if it's male or female, who's scared to death. They work at the parks, the U.S. Parks National Park Service at the Arch downtown. They're scared to death they're going to lose their job. Okay, let me state right off the get-go, I am against public-funded parks. City, county, federal. I mean, when the framers of our Constitution got together, they never said, you know what we need? We need the government to put together parks. They never thought of that, and we got all these agencies and people, where we spend federal tax dollars on things that to me are totally useless. I kid about the fact that Klondike Park is this beautiful park out in St. Charles County that used to be a quarry, and a couple of gay guys lived there, and John still doesn't believe me when I tell that story. But a couple of gay guys lived there in the house, which is now what they call the quarry house, and there's never anybody in the place. And the interesting part of this is that this is my complaint I have with St. Charles County government specifically. They complain about the family arena. Oh, it's losing money. It's losing money. Okay, show me the balance sheet on Klondike Park. Show me the balance sheet on any park, in any park district, St. Louis County, St. Charles County, City of St. Louis, federal government. Show me a park that if you really put it to the test with a CPA has a positive bottom line. Get what I'm saying, John? They're always negative.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I think even advocates, though, of the parks would say the point is not to enhance the bottom line. The fire department isn't there to enhance the bottom line. It's there for public safety. And the parks are not there to enhance the bottom line. They're there to provide a healthy recreational outlet for citizens. And Brad, just because you don't look at parks as a reason why you would move into an area, or your next move into either a nursing home or a morgue, there are plenty of people that look at a community and say, hey, we're only a quarter-mile walk away from the park. That's an additional reason to buy that house.
Okay, but let me turn that around. Let's say they bought that house and the county came to them, or let's say it's in St. Peter's, and the county and St. Peter's got together, and they say, you know what, we know you moved into this house because of the fact that it had a park near it, but you know what, we've got an offer to sell that park for $25 million. We're going to have a developer come in and build more houses, but what we're going to do is we're going to essentially make your real estate taxes for the next 2 years zero. Okay, how many of those people would say, I don't want my real estate taxes to go to zero. I really want that park. 99% of the people would say, yeah, go ahead and sell that park, right? Come on, John, admit it.
Yeah, sure. So no, that's a great hypothetical that isn't based in reality. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
See, especially these people that works for the parks department. See, I keep finding these pictures that bother me of pictures from like the 1910s and the 20s and even the 30s of this vibrant area of the riverfront where there's all these buildings and houses and businesses. And guess what? They're all gone because they eminent domained them all out, and they tore down all these people's houses and businesses and buildings, and they stuck a park there. Okay? I don't get it. And see,
when you're talking about this, you mean the whole Gateway Park,
yes,
the Gateway Arch Park area, right?
Yes, that whole area.
And would you say that maybe some people have come to St. Louis since the 1960s to see the Gateway Arch?
Well, whoop-de-doo. I mean, once again,
I'm not making an argument against cuts to this thing. I'm just saying, I mean, I think there's probably a difference, Brad, between the Gateway Arch and Klondike Park. I think people probably come to see the Gateway Arch. I would agree with you that probably not a whole lot of people make, that area at Klondike Park a destination because they want to see some gay sinkholes.
But my definition of eminent domain, and this is why I have a serious problem with eminent domain. You want to fix eminent domain laws? I got the solution. Be real easy. Just change the eminent domain laws that anytime the government wants to take your property under eminent domain, they determine fair market value and they pay you times 10. So if your house is worth $100,000 and they want to put a road through your house, they just strike you a check for $1 million and you walk away. Yeah, man, that was great. But instead, and people that lose their businesses and things like that, I think that's horrible. Eminent domain should be for the greater good, not for the greater good of people going to a stupid park. It shouldn't be that. It should be if they need to put in a road, they need to expand a road or something like that, a major, a thoroughfare through an area, or if they're going to put in, look at the situation along 170, okay? 170 and out there on the end of Page as well, too. There were all sorts of houses and things like that they tore down out there west of Bennington for the Page extension. Same thing on 170. There are all sorts of houses and businesses they tore down. Okay, now I can see that to a certain extent because for the greater good, you've put in a roadway which benefits St. Louis and St. Louis County people, St. Louis and St. Charles County people, the Page Expressway. You put in a road that benefits all the core communities, essentially the inner belt communities, so to speak, along 170, a quick way to get from Clayton to the airport, a quick way to go from Highway 40 to 170, or to the Interstate 70, to go up to the airport to go to North County. I see that. But what greater good does the stupid arch serve other than, oh, isn't it beautiful? Oh, it's so wonderful. And you say people come to see the arch. Okay, I say BFD. Have you ever been up in the arch, John?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Was it like, oh my God, it was the best experience of my life. I rode in this little tiny cramped thing and I got claustrophobia and I went up to the top.
I think it was fine. Like I would describe it as the youth would say 3 stars, 3 out of 5. I thought it was fine. Yeah.
Okay. But these Parks Department people, I think they take themselves way too seriously.
You don't say. You don't think that maybe they're a little bit of military officer wannabes that love to wear a badge and a uniform? Now, I love the fact there's a guy named Scott McClure, and he leads what is like a charity philanthropic organization. They're a nonprofit. It's the Gateway Arch Park Foundation. They raise private funds and try to fund this stuff. And he referred to the folks that work there as the folks who wear the green and gray. It's almost like saying like back the blue. The folks in the green and gray at these national parks are a very, very important purpose. They serve now he's serious because he repeated the word very. By the way, for the folks who were listening, Brad, we have a lot of young men that listen to this show. If you want to be a better writer, the first place to start is stop saying very. You don't need very in your writing. And I was very happy that the weather was 72 degrees today, but not very. You were happy. You don't need to tell us that you were very happy. But Scott McClure, let's get back to this. Scott McClure says that these national parks serve a very, very important purpose. So they're not important. They're very, very important, Brad.
John, I'm very, 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 very happy you do the show with me. How's that? But
that'll probably be at 8:32. I'll need to delete that from the BJ Show blog, along with other nonsense and all the other superfluous words. Yes, you're very, 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 very happy to be doing the show.
Well, hold it. You've criticized me for not doing my proper keywords. Man, I'm doing the keyword stuffing now, man. I'm just stuffing those keywords in left and right.
Which reminds me, did you see what I sent you? And I know we have at least one listener who's a fan of this term, that Twitter is doing a much better job cracking down on the scourge that is reply guys.
Okay, what is that about? Explain that to me.
Yeah, so I'd be happy to. Reply guys, I'll give you a broad definition, and then I'll give you real life examples. So reply guys are guys, we'll talk about Twitter/X. I might use them interchangeably. They're folks that will see a tweet and they're usually men, of course. They're folks that will see a tweet, let's say by a celebrity or a popular journalist, and instead of having a meaningful interaction with them, will spam them with something meaningless, like, oh, I got a show. You should listen to my show. Or if you had an elected official, let's say, I don't know, somewhere in St. Charles County that was like, hey, here's a policy position that I'm taking. Some moron would come in, reply to them, which is how they get the name reply guys, something that's completely unrelated, and say, hey, like if our guys at the TJ show on Westplex 1071, if they were morons and reply guys, they would reply to people and say, hey, listen to the TJ show. We're on from whatever to whatever on Westplex 1071, coming straight out of New York. So reply guys will reply to people, and reply guys are desperate for attention. So we'll reply to people that in a way that has nothing to do with the original post is. And sometimes they're just, like pedestalizers. So they'll go into a woman's comments and be like, yeah, hey, that's great. They want attention. Or a lot of times the worst, like most egregious version that I hate are people that will reply to elected officials or media people and promote their own stuff. You get what I'm saying?
John is the kind of guy that lives in a neighborhood, and if somebody puts up a fancy mailbox, let's say that, everybody else has like their mailbox on a 4x4 piece of Walmanized, lumber, or maybe they have one that has like, fancy curly Q metal things. Somebody puts in a mailbox that's made like with brick and granite and has a beautiful mailbox and it's so pretty. John's the guy who would say, well, look at that guy. All he's trying to do is get attention. Everybody else has got a regular mailbox, but he's got one that's got bricks and granite and fancy stuff. Matter of fact, I know a guy in a subdivision that has two mailboxes, one that says mail and one that says newspapers. Imagine that guy. How stupid is he? John?
Yeah. So that's a terrible analogy. And Brad, this is a compliment to you. One of the things that you have improved.
No, it's not a compliment.
In your life, one of the things that you do much better is when you did the BS show with Shelley. Sometimes I would see you, because I follow you on Twitter, I would see you reply to people with a link to the BS show.
Yeah.
And it would be like a serious elected official would say something about, let's say, the Second Amendment Preservation Act.
Right.
And then you would reply with a link to the show. And I would go follow it and be like, oh, great, Brad and Shelley are going to talk about the Second Amendment Act. And it was just you telling the same 5 stories for an hour and a half. And I'd be like, well, that's disappointing. Why would Brad spam this person? Now, Brad, you don't do that anymore. You're not going to find an elected official post something, and then you just respond with a link to, God forbid you ever do it with our show, because that would be humiliating and embarrassing. But you're not going to reply to somebody and be like, hey, check out the BJ show. It has nothing to do with your original tweet. But today we talked about Klondike Park. You don't do that anymore, Brad, and I'm proud of you.
Okay, John, the country we're living in, how did we get to be a independent country from the British? How do we essentially
We shot a bunch of redcoats.
Okay, and what did the British do that was very, 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 to them was the proper way of doing things? What did they do?
Let me guess. Can you tell your every 2-week story about drones and the way that war is changing?
They lined up.
It's a guerrilla warfare. They hung in the bushes. Now, Brad, there's a difference between fighting for independence and Brad Hildebrand going to an elected official who's tweeting about something serious and saying, hey, listen to the BJ show. It has nothing to do with what you just tweeted, but I will annoy you. And I'm surprised, Brad, that nobody has reported your tweets for spam.
Well,
And
because
again, I'm not saying you don't do this anymore, Brad. I'm just saying, like, years ago you used to do this, and I'm proud of you for not doing it. Now, why don't you do it anymore?
because they've reported my tweets for pastrami. That's why. Because
Okay.
John,
But I'm proud of you, Brad,
what I
because you don't
what,
engage in that nonsense anymore.
what
And you know, as a marketing expert, Brad, that there are many ways to promote your business that are creative. You've made a career out of it that don't involve going to somebody else's Twitter and annoying them with stuff that has nothing to do with their tweets.
annoying them. Okay. See, this is the interesting thing. John, is there a rule book that has this in it? Can you show me this?
Yeah, it's called common sense. Is there a rule book that says that you don't clear your throat like a nasty 89-year-old man and swallow when you're in public? No. But common courtesy and decorum says we don't go around being snorty and phlegmy in public. Now, Brad, if you want to do it, then by all means, be one of those old men that clears his throat and swallows and makes everybody disgusted. But no, there's no Twitter etiquette book.
John,
And again, I know that you treat compliments like something on the bottom of your shoe, but you've improved your behavior on social media, at least on Twitter. And I think that's something that you should be proud of.
John, what you just made a point of. Look at the girl who cleared her throat and became an overnight sensation.
And now she's facing serious federal charges for a crypto scam. You're right, Brad.
Well, she went a little
I'm going to message her and tell her I'm proud of her for not clearing her throat. And you know what she wouldn't be, Brad? She wouldn't be so desperate for attention that she would go to people's tweets and reply to them with spam in their comments.
John, do you hear that? Do you hear that noise?
Yeah, you're beating a dead horse.
Okay, it's time to move. Why do I put myself through this? I could be asleep still right now. I could be in the drive-through at White Castle getting my morning breakfast. You know what I'm saying?